Good morning and welcome to Iowa for this year's National Association of Manufacturers State of Manufacturing Address. Welcome also to all the manufacturers watching from across the country, and congratulations on 125 years of leadership from the National Association of Manufacturers. You know, manufacturing is vital to Iowa's economy, and my administration has made it a priority to bring more Iowans into this dynamic industry. The NAM's Creators Wanted campaign will undoubtedly advance this important cause. Thank you for all that you do to build our state and country and to lead us into the future. And thank you for choosing Iowa for the National Association of Manufacturers State of Manufacturing Address. Enjoy your conference.
Good morning. Welcome to Vermeer, and welcome to the National Association of Manufacturers State of Manufacturing Address. My name is Jason Andriga. I'm the president and CEO at Vermeer, and also it's an honor for me to serve on the board of the National Association of Manufacturers. A special thank you to Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for her welcome address, also for her support of Vermeer and for manufacturing in Iowa in general. Joining us today are local, state, and federal officials, manufacturing leaders from across the state of Iowa, and team members proud to be manufacturers. To everyone watching online, thank you for joining us today. "72 years ago, Vermeer started right here. My grandparents' house is literally across the street. In 1948, my grandfather built a machine for his own use. His neighbors saw it and asked if my grandfather would build one for them. Pretty quick, there was enough demand that my grandfather started a company. Today, we are a global company with more than 3,500 team members. On either side of me are examples of Vermeer's current mix of products. The ZR5, a zero-turn self-propelled baler that helps our communities produce feed and fuel. The D23DR horizontal directional drill, which installs the underground infrastructure that our societies depend upon: water, electric, fiber optic to support 5G. On my left is a BC1000, and on my right, a BC1000 brush chipper, and on my right, an S925 skid steer, both used to manage our precious natural resources. This team is proud. This team is strong. We realized just how strong this team is a year and a half ago when we were hit by the most powerful tornado in the state of Iowa in more than 3 years. The greatest blessing of that day is we had no serious physical injuries, even though we had hundreds of team members on site at that time. Our facilities were not so lucky. We lost 3 complete buildings totaling approximately 400,000 square feet of manufacturing space. I'm incredibly proud that over the course of the next month, we got our entire team back to work, and over 45 days, we recovered our production. We achieved record volume in 2018 and did so again in 2019. We are currently well underway in our rebuild as we are building back more space than what we lost in the tornado. We are proud to reinvest in this company and reinvest in this community and continue to be a successful manufacturer for years into the future. This day is historic for manufacturers. Today is the exact day of the 125th anniversary of the founding of the NAM. As Iowans, we know this speech comes during an election year, less than 2 weeks before the important Iowa caucuses. That's why the NAM is releasing their manufacturers policy agenda this week. It's called Competing to Win. To get connected and receive critical updates, text WIN, W-I-N, to 52886. That information is on the screen behind me as well. At this time, I am proud to introduce Jay Timmons, President and CEO of the NAM, the largest manufacturing association in America. Jay is a leading and tireless advocate for the nearly 13 million men and women who make things in America. He is a champion for connecting Americans with rewarding careers in modern manufacturing. Jay serves as the chair of the Manufacturing Institute, the NAM's workforce and education partner. In 2019, he was appointed to the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board, chaired by Commerce Secretary Ross and advisor to the President, Ivanka Trump. Jay is often advocating on Capitol Hill for us manufacturers and is influential on both sides of the aisle in Congress. You'll also see him on CNBC, Fox News, and other national outlets. Jay is driven by the values instilled in him by his roots in the manufacturing town of Chillicothe, Ohio. Please join me in welcoming my friend, President and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers, Jay Timmons.
And that breaking news is that we're a young
tornado also hit major central Iowa manufacturer Vermeer in Pella.
Confirms that plant number 7.
We hope that everybody's okay, but that's a bad-looking scene.
We certainly are going to rebuild, and we're going to come back stronger than ever.
9 months after the tornado struck here in Pella, it's hard to find any signs of damage. In fact, Vermeer is almost back to normal.
I would bet on American workers and American know-how any day of the week.
We believe in that beautiful phrase, made in the USA.
Modern manufacturers continue to launch America into the future to conquer that next frontier. And while we can never be certain about what the next few years will bring, I know this: manufacturing will always be the backbone of the American economy.
Well, good morning, Iowa. Good morning, Vermeer. Good morning, America. It is great to be here, and thank you so much for being with us today for this State of Manufacturing address. When I hear Jason talking about the proud history of this company, and I can see the pride in your eyes when you talk about your grandfather, I too have that pride. As you indicated, I grew up in Chillicothe, Ohio. My grandfather was a manufacturer. It runs deep in all of our blood, I know. I want to thank you, too, to the manufacturers that are tuning in all across America, and to the Iowa manufacturing leaders, including our partners from the Iowa Association of Business and Industry, who are here with us today. Again, I want to thank all of you here at Vermeer for hosting us. It's good to be back. I get to come here quite often, and I enjoy it every time I do. And Jason, thank you and your team for putting this event together. What a time. What a time to be in this great manufacturing state of Iowa. You are, as Jason indicated, right at the center of the political universe. The eyes of the world are on you all once again. Got here yesterday, and you can hardly walk down the street, you can hardly go in and get a pizza without being followed by 3 TV cameras and 2 presidential candidates wondering what's on your mind today. I don't know how you guys do this every 4 years. I was going to write, as you all well know, the first draft of history on caucus night as you play your part in this great experiment of American democracy and kick off the 2020 election season. But 2020 is also a landmark year for manufacturers. Today, we are indeed celebrating 125 years of the National Association of Manufacturers. That is definitely worth applause. On January 22nd in 1895, 583 business leaders gathered in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the theater of the Oddfellows Temple, and they gathered to launch a national organization dedicated to advancing manufacturing in the United States of America. For 125 years, the NAM, your NAM, has led the business community and fought for all who make things in America. And all of you in this room, and the 13 million men and women in our industry, some of whom are watching us today, are part of the storied history of building our exceptional nation. And Vermeer, this very company, embodies the story of manufacturers' progress. It began, as Jason indicated, in the 1940s with Gary Vermeer's wagon hoist that caught the eye of local farmers and launched his successful business. And ever since, generation after generation, Vermeer, like so many manufacturers, has led a march of continuous innovation, leading from failures to achieve success. The round one-ton hay bale that changed the hay industry, trenchers that helped lay a network of energy pipelines, the horizontal drill which pierced the ground across this nation to make way for the fiber cable that revolutionized communications. Just steps from here sits the house where Gary Vermeer started it all. From humble beginnings to a brand trusted the world over. That relentless drive to build solutions is what powered manufacturing to this day, where we contribute $2.4 trillion to the US economy and make up 19% of the Iowa economy. 13 million men and women making our lives possible while making their American dream a reality. Chemists and biologists at Lilly and Pfizer creating the life-saving medicines that heal us and protect us. Engineers at Honda and Toyota redefining mobility. Pioneers at Boeing and Lockheed preparing to take us deeper into space. Developers at Microsoft harnessing the astonishing possibilities of artificial intelligence. Technicians at Sukup building the structures that store the grain that feeds the world. Food manufacturers at General Mills not only producing our food, but committing to do so in ways that are even more environmentally sustainable. And dotted all across the country are the thousands of small manufacturers, creators, and inventors who are the suppliers and partners in advancing human progress. Yes, manufacturing is vastly different than it was in 1895, to say the least, with humans and robots today working alongside each other as technology drives our fourth industrial revolution. But one thing remains the same: manufacturing workers. Manufacturing workers are the heart of a strong American economy. And you know what? We need more workers. So in this pivotal year, the NAM and the Manufacturing Institute, our workforce and education partner, we're setting out on an unprecedented campaign to inspire a new generation and tell the real story of our industry. One of the biggest misperceptions is that automation is coming for our jobs, but manufacturers know the truth. Technology makes us safer. It's more effective. Some jobs are going to shift, often to higher skilled, higher tech positions. But people will always be what makes this industry possible. Something that Governor Kim Reynolds right here in Iowa knows so well, and I'm honored to work alongside of her on that American Workforce Policy Advisory Board. Our members tell us that this is their top concern: educating Americans on these opportunities and finding workers for the hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs that are open today and the 4.6 million jobs that will be open over the coming 8 years. Our historic effort is called Creators Wanted. It's a capital campaign that will support the programs of the Manufacturing Institute, including the STEP Women's Initiative, Youth Engagement, and Heroes Make America, which trains our returning service members for high-paying manufacturing jobs. And you can bet Creators Wanted will also be coming to a city or a state near you, so we hope that you will come out and see us there. This spring, our mobile tour will launch and engage more than 250,000 Americans with hands-on experiences that demonstrate the high-tech opportunities in modern manufacturing and open the minds to what our industry offers. We're going to reach more than 15 million people online, and then we're going to conclude this year's activities with the Making America Festival in September. And we're going to gather where else but Cincinnati, Ohio, where it all began in 1895. And every single one of you here in this room, every single one of you watching, you're all invited, and we can't wait to see you there. I'm proud to announce today that Vermeer Corporation, along with your foundation, and also Mary and Dr. Dale Andringa have contributed $100,000 to this cause. Thank you very, very much. And another local manufacturer, Pella Corporation, is also leading example with a $100,000 contribution of its own. Manufacturers across America are stepping up in the same way, and we want everybody to be a part of it. So please get involved, and you can do that by going to creatorswanted.org. That's creatorswanted.org, and you can find out how to get involved. Now, as we start this new decade, manufacturers are indeed at a turning point. The NAM's most recent quarterly Manufacturers Outlook survey found that 68% of manufacturers have a positive outlook for their business. Now, you might say 2 out of 3 sounds pretty good. But you know what? In mid-2018, we were at a record high levels of optimism at 90%. We've stabilized in the 60% area right now, the high 60s right now. And it's good to know that this survey was actually in the field before the trade deal with China and before Congress passed the US-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. That means the numbers should improve in the first quarter, barring the unexpected, like geopolitical events that are outside of our control. So 125 years since our association's founding, manufacturers in America are in a state of renewed resolve, ready to reach our full potential, to lead the world in innovation, and to advance our country to a better, brighter future. If our elected leaders choose to enact policies that advance manufacturers' priorities, our industry is prepared to lift up our entire country. And that's what we've seen in recent years. Just yesterday, in his remarks at the World Economic Forum, President Trump touted manufacturing's growth and success during his presidency. And as I've said before, from tax reform to regulatory certainty to leveling the playing field internationally, promises made to manufacturers have indeed been kept. The employment and output numbers prove that. It's always important to hold leaders and candidates accountable. And who has a better opportunity to do that than folks right here in Iowa? Now, the NAM doesn't endorse presidential candidates because it's our job to work with whomever wins the White House. And that's what we do for our members. We advocate for you in the halls of the White House and in Congress. We make sure that you have a seat at the table with the most powerful people in our country. But here's what I will say about this election. It's not about the label that's next to a candidate's name, whether it's an R or a D or an I. That's not what determines whether he or she will be a good president, or even whether he or she will be a good member of the United States Senate or the United States Congress or any other elected office. The test is whether he or she will work to uphold the values that make America exceptional. These are the same four values, the same four pillars, if you will, that make our industry's success possible. So the best leaders support all four of them. First, free enterprise. The system unmatched by any other, where market forces drive innovation and growth. The second is competitiveness. The level playing field manufacturers in the United States need and deserve to be able to compete and win in the global economy. Third is individual liberty, each person's inherent rights, and upholding and respecting these rights unleashes creativity and entrepreneurship. And fourth is equal opportunity, the fundamental belief that every single American contributes to the success of our companies, our communities, and our country. In other words, what matters isn't party or personality or politics or process. What matters is good policy. For years, the NAM has taken this post-partisan approach, and that's an important word. It's not bipartisan, it's not nonpartisan, it's post-partisan. We've called on others to do the same, and time has proven us right. The USMCA free trade agreement, for example, it never would have gotten through Congress if we had let it become a partisan trade agreement. Other business associations and executives are changing their model as well. They've also realized that you can't put all your eggs in one political party's basket, and manufacturers should be proud that we are leading this charge. But if anyone is confused about what those values mean in practice, this week we're releasing our Competing to Win blueprint for 2020. It's manufacturers' agenda on 11 key policy areas. You're going to find a trove of information in here that candidates and elected officials need to ensure that America is able to compete and win. On taxes, we want to keep moving forward on tax reform. The 20% deduction for small businesses, and I know there's a lot of small business owners that are watching today. Please know we're working to make that permanent. We want to expand it, and we also want to make sure that the Treasury Department implements the law as Congress intended. We want to keep hearing stories like that of Hancock Lumber, a 171-year-old company in Maine, which, thanks to tax reform, recently increased employees' wages, bonuses, and the company's 401k contribution, and many other things. Tax reform was rocket fuel, absolute rocket fuel in 2018, as manufacturers kept our promises to invest in our people and in our communities. In 2019, as I indicated, things slowed a bit. We had net job growth, which is good, but trade uncertainties began to weigh us down a bit. So on trade, we have to keep moving forward, especially with China. Tariffs have consequences. But you know what? So does China's cheating. The president, to his great credit, has secured a phase 1 deal with China. So now, let's hold China accountable, and let's negotiate the next phase to turn the trade war into a full-scale enforceable trade agreement, just as the NAM called for 2 years ago in our letter to the president. Then let's get trade deals with as many other countries as possible, and let's do that before China does it. And let's fully implement the USMCA now, since it's been passed, so companies like Vermeer can do what they do best: sell more Iowa-made products to more people all around the world, especially here in North America. Trade is indeed one of the big success stories of the past decade, and along with that is energy policy. Thanks to manufacturers' ingenuity, America is producing far more energy than we even thought possible, or that we projected just 1 decade ago. That's allowed us to become a net exporter of energy for the first time in modern history, None of us remember when we were a net exporter. That is something to celebrate. We're now also far less reliant on hostile regimes for our energy needs, and that is clearly more important than ever before. And here's some good news. Energy-related greenhouse gas emissions are not only below projections, but they're below 2010 levels as well. Going forward, we need energy regulations that allow us to keep innovating and delivering reliable energy from all sources: oil, gas, nuclear, solar, wind, renewables, and so much more. That's how we're going to improve our environment, and that's how we're going to tackle climate change. Innovation, cooperation, and smart bipartisan legislation that doesn't put manufacturers in America at a competitive disadvantage. Modernized regulations, like the Trump administration's game-changing permitting reforms, they allow us to build needed infrastructure while still keeping our promise to be good environmental stewards. But let me tell you what doesn't help, though. Attacks on energy manufacturers, like lawsuits from headline-grabbing politicians and profit-seeking jackpot justice trial lawyers. That has just simply got to stop. The fact of the matter is, we're all in this together. We're all in this together on this one God-given planet. So we're going to have to solve climate change together. And you know, bold, cooperative thinking, that's also what's needed to fix our nation's infrastructure. In our Building to Win plan, the NAM is calling for more than $1 trillion in investment in infrastructure to fix collapsing bridges, unclog our highways, deploy 5G capabilities, and a whole lot more. I'm going to put it this way. Would an extra $3,400 a year make a difference in your life or in the life of somebody that you know? Because that's how much our broken infrastructure system costs every single American family every single year. The gridlock on our highways is just unacceptable. But the gridlock in Congress, that's no excuse. Now, on immigration, manufacturers want a comprehensive solution that fixes border security and that addresses economic realities, but also, and very importantly, shows compassion. We have a full plan ready to go. It's called A Way Forward at the NAM. So don't tell manufacturers that this can't be done. And don't tell me that we don't have room for immigrants who want to contribute to this country either, because there are more jobs to fill in America than unemployed people to fill them. And don't forget, nearly half of Fortune 500 companies were actually founded by immigrants or by their children. On healthcare, our message is first, do no harm. 98% of NAM member companies offer health benefits, and we want more flexibility so that we can offer even more coverage. Whatever you name it, a government for all plan, it's just not going to cut it with manufacturers. And at the same time, we need to protect our ability to deliver the life-saving cures that manufacturers make. On healthcare, the NAM is also proud to provide not just policy solutions, but practical solutions. We've established a groundbreaking association plan for smaller companies. At namhealthcare.com, manufacturers with 2 to 99 employees can access plans usually available only to larger companies. And that potentially lets small manufacturers' membership pay for itself. That is what a modern association does in order to take care of its members. And for the overall health and success of our companies and their people, Competing to Win also has prescriptions on labor protections, corporate governance, research, technology and innovation, as well as regulatory and legal reform. Since President Trump took office, by the way, we've made progress on an astounding 91.5% of the regulations that our members identified as needing to be modernized. But as you might guess, your NAM is, frankly, we're not content with less than 100%. Our mission is to always exceed your expectations. So here's my challenge today to any candidate or any elected official. Just try to find a more reasonable, more attainable, more unifying plan for America and America's future than the NAM's competing to win proposal. Unfortunately, as we all know, the nature of politics is that reasonable and unifying, they don't always win the day. Extremism and division often do. And we're seeing that with calls for socialism or isolation or protectionism that would undermine our very economic system. There are forces trying to exploit our differences and pull us apart. Foreign powers, cynical operatives, politicians who have abandoned their values. So we all of us, have work to do. Some Americans are losing faith in our system because their concerns go unaddressed. Business leaders need to be unafraid to speak up to these concerns as we champion for an even stronger free enterprise system that lifts everybody up and leaves no one behind. And there's one very patriotic thing that every single one of us can do, and that's vote. When manufacturers have the right tools, when our government is not holding us back, we can do incredible things. Stories the NAM is proud to share with the world, from companies leading the way on sustainability to giving back to those in need, like, of course, the Vermeer Corporation. You've lent a helping hand to your community here in Pella in a time of crisis, even as you rebuilt from the 2018 tornado that ripped through the heart of the Vermeer Mile. Your courageous work has truly inspired manufacturers nationwide, because that's what manufacturers do. And the NAM's mission is to make sure manufacturers have the tools you need to keep succeeding and to write America's next incredible chapter. The story of the past 125 years is one of manufacturers, all of you in this room, all of you watching, the 13 million men and women around our country, changing our country for the better, being the solution. And that's our calling for the next 125 years. This American experiment, our shining city upon a hill, it was built by manufacturers. So drawing inspiration from the past with our eyes firmly fixed on the future, we set forth again today on that mission. And I surely hope all of you will join us along the way. Thank you so much for having me here today. Now I'm going to ask the NAM Senior Vice President for Communications and Brand Strategy, Aaron Streeter, and your own Jason Andringa to come up, and I think we'll take a few questions and answers. Come on up.
Okay, thanks, Jay. We're going to dive into questions here right away, but for those of you who are watching online, you can also submit some questions, and we're also going to take a few questions from the audience as well. Liz has a microphone over here, and if you want to raise your hand, you can get in the queue and get some questions in. So, Jay, you mentioned this is a landmark year for manufacturing. You mentioned Creators Wanted the initiative. Tell us a little bit more about what we're hoping to accomplish with that initiative and bring it to life for people.
Sure, thanks, Aaron. And I tell you, this really is an incredible opportunity for manufacturers, and the timing is exactly right. It's no secret 2020 is an election year.
I assume it's really not a secret here in Iowa. It's also the 125th anniversary of the NAM, and at the same time, manufacturers, really for the first time in our history, are facing a workforce shortage that is a crisis, that something we've never seen before. So as we put in place all those great policies, tax reform and regulatory certainty and a level playing field, and we focus our sights on the future, on infrastructure and other reforms, we realize we don't have enough people to do the jobs that we have available. We have 500,000 jobs open today in manufacturing. That number grows to 2.4 million in just a few years. And literally every single CEO I talk to, Jason, and I know when you're at our board meeting, you have the same conversations, they all rank that as the number one concern they have. That's what our surveys say every single quarter for the last several years, is that workforce challenges, finding that trained workforce, being able to upskill and reskill workers is the number one challenge that we have. So what we're doing is we're launching a crusade across this country. We're going to be in up to 25 states with a hands-on mobile experience that's going to give young people and their parents, because that's important as well, the ability to see what modern manufacturing is all about. And this experience, this mobile experience, I think is going to be pretty exciting. I have 3 young kids. They love Disney World. This is going to be a cross between Disney and manufacturing. So you can take your kids to these stops, and I think they're going to be really inspired. We're going to be at fairs. We're going to be at schools. We're going to be at sporting events. We're going to be all over this country with this mobile experience. So we hope everybody will join us, and they can find out at the schedule at creatorswanted.org.
What Jay is not telling you is he's going to be driving a big semi truck with the mobile experience behind him, right? You're going to really
Sure. So Erin is responsible for communications at the NAM. She would tell me that I was committing news if I did that. So I think that might not be the best idea.
Jason, Jay mentioned your contribution to the campaign today. Vermeer is a part of this, which is really terrific. Why did you feel that you needed to be a part of this initiative?
I'm very proud that the Vermeer Foundation and my parents and Pella Corporation have made the generous contributions that they have to this effort, because as Jay said, for years now, our number one concern at Vermeer is getting the skilled workforce that we need to continue to grow like we have. And it's not only Vermeer, but when we talk to our dealers and our customers, we hear the exact same thing from them. I've heard from customers over and over and over again the last few years that their limitation is not equipment, it is the operators to run the equipment. So it's not only for manufacturers, but it's those that use our equipment to do the terrific work that our equipment does to make all of our lives better that need skilled workforce.
So I want to remind everyone, Liz is over here. If anyone in the audience has a question, please raise your hand and we'll take that question from the audience. Jay, one thing that you mentioned, and I know you believe firmly on, is that the business leaders have a role to play in uniting this country and bringing people together. Talk a little bit, and you touched on it in your speech, but talk a little bit more about why that is so important from your vantage point.
So actually, it's business. And when I say business leaders, by the way, I mean everyone who's involved in manufacturing. So the 13 million men and women who make up our industry, I think that's critical. I think the folks that lead our great companies need to be the voices of their communities, to members of Congress, to the administration. And here's why. I don't want to opine on why we have gotten to this place, but let's just suffice it to say that we're here. The American people distrust institutions today. There's a lot of distrust in the media. There's certainly distrust in our elected officials. The things that we relied on for most of our lives to comfort us that America was in the right place and that we were an exceptional nation are being questioned over and over again. The one area where I think there's a lot of credibility still left, and the one area where I think we can help to rebuild those other institutions and restore that credibility, is the business community, because we're the ones who are enriching our communities. We're the ones who are contributing to the success, the economic success of this country, and we know what it takes to to actually be able to accomplish that. So when Jason Andringa talks to a member of Congress or speaks to the governor or even speaks to local officials and says, look, all we want to do is we want to make stuff. We want to be able to sell Iowa-made products to folks around this country and around the world, and here's what we need. And you're going to have that list. You walk in with authority. You walk in with the backing of all the men and women at this company, and it doesn't hurt when you bring them along as well.
Jason, where do you see the opportunities for that from your vantage point?
At Vermeer, hundreds of our jobs are based on the fact that we have the opportunity to sell the equipment we build right here in Pella, Iowa, around the world. So, there are hundreds of people that drive here every day building equipment, and they literally go to dozens and dozens of countries around the world. And I'm very proud of the fact that right out of this company, we have the opportunity to make a global contribution.
That's really terrific. Jay, one of the things that you also...
So let me just say one other thing.
Yeah.
And the story, right? Your grandfather, what your grandfather did, he was just tinkering, right? He was just doing what he loved to do. And from that, this all emerged. And that is the story of America. It is the heart of America. Elected officials respond to that.
They definitely do. We did earlier get some online questions before the program started, and one of them was, and I'll ask both of you this, what would you like to see manufacturing employees do more of when it comes to politics?
Vote, for sure. There's an amazing lack of interest in the political process by all Americans. I don't remember what the number was in the 2018 elections, but I think maybe 2 out of 3 eligible voters actually went to the polls and voted. Presidential elections have been decided by just a few people in a few precincts in one state. Governors have been elected by just a few votes. In my home state, my current home state of Virginia, the control of the General Assembly was actually decided, get this, by picking names from a jar, because there were 49 of one party, 50 of another, and then one uncontested. And that particular uncontested race was tied. So if one more person of either party had come to the polls, they wouldn't have had to pick a name from a jar to decide which party would control the Virginia House of Delegates. This was 2 years ago. So voting matters. Not only that, but speaking up matters. As I mentioned, coming and talking to elected officials is important, but it's really important to talk to candidates, because while they're on the campaign trail, they're forming not only their agenda, but they're making promises. And people, it's human nature, they want to keep their promises, even if they've made bad promises. We want to make sure that candidates don't make mistakes along the way and say the wrong things, taking your story, what you are able to do on the job with the tools that you're given by the government or lack of barriers by the government. That helps tell the story of what you need to succeed, so that candidates hopefully will say the right things, not make promises that, if they keep, can harm our ability to compete and succeed.
Jason?
I think keeping the big picture in mind is really important. And we've already talked about a couple very important topics for Vermeer and for manufacturers in general: workforce and the opportunity to sell our terrific world-class products globally. Another couple that I'll point out is infrastructure. Vermeer is a significant user of infrastructure, getting our team to our facility every day, all the supplies that we need to build our equipment, and then distributing that throughout the country and around the world. And then, of course, the equipment that we manufacture is also used to build infrastructure that we all depend upon, particularly underground infrastructure. And then tax reform and regulatory reform, all these things Jay mentioned very significantly in his speech. But at Vermeer, we are currently in the midst of our most unprecedented period of reinvesting back in the business that we have ever had, and tax reform and regulatory reform have been part of the reason why we have been able to do that and not only recover from the tornado, but build back better and stronger than ever.
Great.
I was just going to say, Aaron, sometimes I think people get concerned about they're not sure how they can get involved and or how they can tell their stories. And sometimes you have people that just say, look, I don't know anything about politics. I don't want to engage in that. They may know that infrastructure, for instance, is important and that you make lots of equipment that helps build our roads and bridges, but they may not understand how they can impact a policymaker. And my response is, well, what did you do today at work? Tell that story. Just tell these candidates and these elected officials what you do every single day to build the American experience. And by the way, if you want some additional resources, you can text, and I'd ask especially the folks online to do this. Jason mentioned it earlier. Text the word WIN, W-I-N, to 52886. That'll plug you into the NAM. We will make sure that you have all the resources you need.
We have like a minute left, but we have an audience question, so we'll go ahead and take that.
Can you talk a little bit more about Creators Wanted, what the goal is financially, where are you in that fundraising process, and kind of the key points that you want to get across?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. So we are really pleased that we hit the first initial milestone. We needed to do that by the end of the year. We did it. It was a $10 million milestone to fund this tour, this 25-state tour. Our goal is to get to $20 million. We're well on our way to do that. And we have several metrics that we want to achieve. So first and foremost, we're going to talk to 250,000 students and parents across this country. We're going to hit, as I mentioned, 15 million people online. But at the end of the day, we want to increase the number of parents who would recommend manufacturing as a potential career choice. Right now, it's only 27% of parents who would do that because a lot of them think of manufacturing like it was in our grandparents' day, kind of dirty, dark, and dangerous. That doesn't exist anymore. Look at this place. I mean, my gosh, you walk down the Vermeer Mile and you see the technology and the modern methods of making things in America. It's pretty cool. It's sleek. It's technology driven. There's a new challenge and new excitement every single day. We want young people to see that. If we are able to achieve our goal, we're going to get from 27% of parents who would recommend manufacturing as a career choice. We're going to get that to a minimum of 50%. We've got a lot of other metrics along that way, and you can see that at creatorswanted.org.
Great. Well, I want to thank both of you. I think we could sit up here and probably talk all day. There's so many issues to cover, but I want to thank Jason and Vermeer for hosting us today. You've been a true partner for us. We hosted a presidential forum here. How many years ago was that, Jay? 8 years, and really just a fabulous contribution to our organization, and so we really appreciate you hosting us today. I want to thank everyone in the audience for being here as well, and those online. And Jay mentioned texting WIN 52886 to stay in touch with us, but also please visit creatorswanted.org. Thanks so much for being here.